Hello everybody, this is Connor, BoatsDon'tSink, here with another Vice Schwartz deck profile. Today we're going to be looking at the 7 Deadly Sins. This is going to be a StockSoul Gate deck, utilizing the Elizabeth level 0 Climax combo and the Hendrickson finisher from set 1. Before we jump in, to explain a little bit on 7 Deadly Sins, sort of background, why are we playing Hendrickson? Any of you that have been playing the game probably for the last, I guess it's about a year and a half at this point, since the Revival of the Commandment set was getting revealed. You know, the Escanor level 3 finisher for 7 Deadly Sins. Super powerful, and was basically the reason that 7 Deadly Sins started seeing a lot of play in the 2022 season. Really just for Worlds and Springfest 2023. But it did get restricted rather quickly. So we do have the restriction list between these two cards. You can't play them both in the same deck. And these were the cards that sort of enabled the combo that made Escanor so powerful. Escanor is still definitely functional without it, but there's a few other reasons that we don't want to be playing him right now in particular, I think. Escanor, his effect lets you split his attack. Effectively, instead of attacking for, say, 5 damage, it would split it into 5 instances of 1 damage. This meant that you were super good at closing out games. It was very hard for your opponent to cancel their way out of, lethal when you only needed to stick 5 or 6 damage and you had 10 to 12 ones coming at them. However, the current environment, I think a lot of decks just have way too powerful finishers, to where if you're putting them to level 3 where they're in range of Escanor finishing them anyway, you might as well just be dead. Decks like Chainsaw Man, Hololive with the Gura finisher, and a few others can really just close out the game as soon as they hit level 3, regardless of where you are. So we're opting to, instead of play Escanor, go for the Hendrickson combo, and we'll look a little bit at sort of how that plays out and what that lets us do to sort of counter this issue with just dying as soon as your opponent hits level 3. We're actually kind of just going to try to do the same thing back to our opponent instead. So the deck list. Reminder, as always, this is just meant to be a starting point to work off of. It might not be fully optimized for any specific meta or your playstyle. You should definitely play around it with it yourself, test it out, and make any changes that you find necessary. This deck has pretty much, it's been gaining popularity lately, as of sort of last season, I think. People still playing 7 Deadly Sins. And it actually had a really good showing at the Springfest this past weekend in Ontario, where it was at least 3 of the top 8, I know for sure, and was present on both the first and second place teams. So super powerful deck. This list is going to look pretty similar to some of the ones in that top 8. So it is a pretty solid starting point to make any preference changes that you want off of that. So looking at the deck itself, you can see it's basically half level 0s. And the rest is level 3s and climaxes. So there's not a whole lot in between. Kind of just a very small bridge from our level 0 game into our finishers, featuring a couple early plays here and there. We are, as I said, playing StockSouls and Gates, so this is going to be a very aggressive deck. That's honestly probably the most aggressive climax lineup you can have, or at least one of them, where we want to be slamming StockSouls every turn, building resources, pushing damage, and the gate triggers are going to help us keep adding those back to our hand for more consistency on them. Taking a look at the deck's breakdown, as I said, it is actually exactly half level 0s, 25 of them, with 20 of our remaining cards being level 3s or climaxes. So, very just valley sort of looking split there. We are primarily yellow, since that is going to be the color of our StockSoul and our level 0 climax combo with 23 yellow cards. Blue is for our finisher with 15. We do have 8 green cards. These are going to tie into our finisher and give us a little bit of an early play bridge. And red is just there for some utility cards. 42 characters, 8 climaxes, not playing any events in this list. And we have 25 soul triggers, which is a pretty reasonable count. Mainly just backed up by the fact that we have so many on our climaxes. Half of those 25, pretty much, 12 of them are on our climaxes. But this does mean that we're able to trigger soul triggers quite often and keep pushing damage, either on the turns that we don't play climaxes or just swinging for 3s on the turns that we do play them. So looking at these cards in a little more detail. First up is Escanor, wielder of Rita. So this is a card that Originally, I don't think was seeing as much play in the 7 Deadly Sins list, but right now in particular, I think this is a super good reason, just baseline, to play 7 Deadly Sins. This is one of the most sort of meta-dependent but relevant cards, right? That if you're looking at, hey, I want to be able to beat the decks in the current meta, which looking at this from a like spring 2024 perspective, this is a card that tells you, hey, let's play 7 Deadly Sins, because it's going to do that. It's a 0/0/500. When it becomes reversed, if the battle opponent is level X or lower, you can put that character into your opponent's stock. If you do, put the bottom card of your opponent's stock into their waiting room. X is equal to the number of Escanor, Wielder of Rita in your waiting room. So instead of being a normal, stock bomb, level 0 stock bomb, this can actually scale up to level 1, level 2, level 3, depending on how many extra copies of himself you have in your waiting room. Baseline, even if you have none, this can still be a level 0 stock bomb, which is great. In current environment, if you're playing against decks like Hololive, where they have Aqua or Lapras that has an on-death effect, Escanor is going to be able to deny those. And there are, a pretty solid handful of decks playing things like that. Hololive, as I mentioned, in addition to any decks playing sort of like the Fukazero effect, if the Chainsaw Man decks are playing the Power Stock Bomb from their trial deck, like that's on-death plus. So there's a lot of random things that you're going to be hitting here. But because this can scale up, it can also be really good at beating out level 1s. Which, in particular, right now, Chainsaw Man, the deck that was on all 8 of the top 8 teams in Ontario, they're 1/0 that they're trying to get up to like 10,000 power. You can just crash one of these Escanors in. Not only are you going to remove their 10,000 power character, it's also going to weaken the other 2 down to 8,000, since you've removed one from their stage. And all that takes is you having an Escanor on board and an Escanor in waiting room. If you can have 2 of these Escanors, you can bomb 2 of their 1/0s, which sets the last one down to 6,000, and that means any of your other characters will actually be able to run over it. So this can be a pretty solid meta tool to just sort of break up the strategies of some of the relevant decks that we see right now. And even if you're not playing against those decks, it is still just a stock bomb that's quite good in general. Next we have Meliodas fulfilling his promise. 0/0/500 once again. On play from hand, you can discard one, reveal the top card of your deck, choose a level X or lower in waiting room, return it to your hand. X is equal to the level of the card you revealed. This is just a way for us to, pitch extra level 3s that we might draw, since we do have 12 of them, turn them into any of the other cards in our deck. Since our main advantage combo is a level 0, this can help us set those up early. Say if one goes into our clock, we can play this at level 1 to grab it out. Or if we just mill over it somehow. This can be just really good at getting those back. Can be good at getting any of our other utility cards, since we do have a handful of things like drop searchers or just other salvagers that this can sort of chain into, etc. Just lots of good utility. Also, on attack, pumps 500 power to one of our characters. Not super relevant, but we do play a clean cut in this list, so maybe that 500 power matters here and there. Speaking of the clean cut, we do have him right here. Meliodas Important Things, 0/0/2000. On play from hand, if you have another Britannia character, which is going to be any of our characters, this card gets +1 level and plus 1500 power until end of turn, making this a level 1 3500. So level 1 can be kind of relevant if you're playing against opposing decks that have bombs, which you will see Chainsaw Man right now that plays usually 4 copies of a bottom deck bomb, so it can be good for farming that if they put it on board. In addition to just being a 3500, that's pretty good power line for a clean cut. Second effect, obviously, is the clean cut effect. When it reverses battle opponent, choose one of your other characters, rest it, move it to an open position of your backstage. This can be just really good in general with our level 0 combo, since it's a brainstorm. We want it to be in our back row generally, but if we don't need to brainstorm on any given turn, we can just push it up, attack with it, and then use our clean cut to save it. Similar to what Kaguya-sama is going to be doing with sort of their setup. This is also sort of even better in a deck like this, because we do have just incidental power pump tied to a lot of our utility level 0s. There's the 500 on the Meliodas we just looked at before this, and also our Hendrickson can pump 1000 on attack. So it is pretty good at just having a lot of incidental power, being able to run over sort of whatever you need on your opponent's board. Most of the lists you'll see, I think in general, are going to be playing the Guilt Under Magic Words in this slot instead of Meliodas. That's going to be the 3500 that gets a marker on play and can move to a center stage position that has an opponent's character facing it, so it's a chaser. Generally, they're going to be playing that. That gives you a little more green color fix to make your green a little more consistent. And it's a plussing 0 that just doesn't rely as much on sort of the board state being favorable for a clean cut. So it's definitely a viable option there. But I think if you're trying to sort of beat the best decks right now, the Meliodas is really good at doing that. But either one's fine. I actually kind of do like the Meliodas being yellow here, despite the fact that we have such a low green count. Because a lot of our yellow cards, we don't actually want to like level or clock away, but we need yellow for our StockSoul. So, you know, play around with that as you like. Figure out which one you want more. We play one copy of Elizabeth, Courage, and Determination. This is a drop search that gains +1 soul in the middle position of your center stage, since we're very often just going to have to be throwing zeros at our opponent to push damage and generate resources while we set up for our finisher. This lets you attack for 2 soul while you're doing that, which is great. It's also a drop search, which means it can grab any of the characters out of our deck regardless of their level, while also being a level 0, meaning we can always grab it off of our Climax combo, and we can always grab it off the Meliodas that salvages based on the level you reveal off the top. So easy to access, good on board as a just attacker, and helps us set up any of our other stuff. Now our main Climax combo here, Elizabeth, Trust in the Promise. This is a 0/0 1500. It's a Climax combo with a StockSoul, so great Climax type. Obviously, Chainsaw Man sort of running the format right now, playing very similar Brainstorm with a StockSoul combo. We see this here and there nowadays. It's basically strong every time they print something like this. And before Chainsaw Man even, 7 Deadly Sins was running the meta with Escanor, so this is on Climax place. If you have another character, put the top card of your deck into your waiting room, choose up to 1 level X or lower character in your waiting room, return it to your hand. X is equal to the level of the card that you milled. So very similar to the 0/0 Meliodas we looked at. This is just, you don't have to discard, it's just on Climax place instead. This is basically the reason that we're playing so many level 0 utility cards that are going to be able to hand fix us into other things. Elizabeth is not always going to be able to mill to grab the level we need, so we play a lot of cards so that she can just grab them and then turn them back into whatever else. This is also good for grabbing like Climax swappers, things like that, so we can just always keep looping this combo every turn. For most of the game, the important thing is just having enough attackers to keep pushing damage, and you have all game to get your finisher set up, right? So it's not urgent, and this is very good at just slamming StockSoul every turn and getting us that damage we need. The second effect on it is just a pay 1, rest itself Brainstorm. For each Climax, you choose a character in waiting room and return it to your hand. So this is actually a way to get those higher level characters if you need to. Churn through your deck, pay out Climaxes you triggered, stuff like that. Just get you extra card advantage if you need it, or on turns where you don't draw the StockSoul. We play 2 copies of the King Climax swap. On play, look at top 2 of your deck and put them back in any order. That's good just for information, for attack order, knowing which lanes you need to direct or side in. Which ones you're going to hit soul triggers in. It can also be used to rearrange to set up better mills on your Brainstorm combo or the 0/0 Meliodas. Or if you've seen a CA Climax, you can note a Brainstorm. So lots of good information there. And it's also just on play, pay 1, discard a Climax, add a Climax from waiting room to hand. This means that if we ever draw the wrong Climax, we can turn it into our StockSoul to keep going. Or if we need to find our finisher Climax, we can get it that way. We play 2 copies of Elaine Revived. This is another Brainstorm. It has a Climax combo, but we're not playing the Climax, so we're going to ignore that. The Brainstorm effect is to put 1 other character from your stage into your waiting room and arrest this card. Brainstorm 4, for each Climax, look at top 3 of your deck, choose a card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest into waiting room. This is the same as the Makima that we've seen in all the Chainsaw Man decks. It is no stock, just sacks a character, can get us anything. We don't play events in this deck, but this can get us our Climaxes and can be a good way to just consistently get back into your Climax. It does have to sack a character, but we have so many just random utility zeros that it's usually fine to sack. This is really good on turns where you can brainstorm with Elizabeth, and if you hit because you're compressed, you can get just a bunch of fodder to sort of sack off to your lane to dig for the climax. And it's extra steps, but it means that your Elizabeth brainstorms can like kind of help you get to the climax by getting you things to sack to a lane. And we do play some cards that we play 2 copies of the next Elaine. They can help us draw toward our climax as well. So this can be Elaine guarding the spring, 0015. On play, reveal top of your deck. If it's a character, put it in your hand, discard 1. On play from hand, you can discard a character to draw a card. So this can help us dig toward our climaxes, or just get rid of extra level 3s stuck in our hand, or extra climaxes stuck in our hand if, you know, we really get to that point. But it's a good card just to be able to grab off of our brainstorm combo to try to dig toward the next StockSoul, or dig toward the next climax in general, so we can climax swap it. It's also a really good card in combination with the brainstorm we just looked at, since you can play it, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a climax, you just don't... If it's the climax you need, you can ditch to draw it. If it's the wrong one and you don't have a climax swap, or you just don't need another climax, you can sack it to the brainstorm, hit guaranteed. Or you can add it to hand, pitch another card, draw again. If you still didn't draw a climax, right, you've gone through 2 clean cards. So when you sack it to brainstorm, you effectively got like a brainstorm 6. It's just really good synergy there. Always nice cards to keep grabbing over and over again off something like that. It's just good hand fix in general. Pretty common theme with this deck is just having lots of hand fixing to keep our loops going. Next card we're playing is Hendrickson Grandmaster. So this is our, honestly, kind of the majority of our blue count that we might want to be leveling at some point. But this is a 001k. On play from hand, pay 1, put the top card of your deck into your clock. When this is placed on stage from hand, you can search your deck for a cost 0 or lower character with level equal to or lower than your level, and put it on any position of your stage and shuffle. So, notable thing here is that you're not triggering on play effects by doing this, since it's not coming from your hand, it's just coming straight from your deck to the stage. But this is really good for finding our brainstorms early. We ideally want 2 copies of our brainstorm in the back row at all times, if not 3 or 4 copies on our stage total when we're playing the climax, to just get a lot of hand back. This can find them just super easy, and make sure that we have multiple copies to start flooding our board. Essentially means we're playing like 8 copies of the brainstorm in our deck. You can also use it to search other things though. You can use it to search the clean cut if you already have enough brainstorms. Again, you don't get the on play effect, so the clean cut is just stuck at 2k, but Hendrickson's second effect is on attack, give a character 1000, which can make up for not getting that level in 1500. It can make your Meliodas clean cut still a 3k, can still save one of your brainstorms, etc. Our last level 0 is Hauser, Smile of Relief. So this is another one of our utility cards that's good to grab off the brainstorm. He's a 500 assist, which is not super relevant outside of the clean cut itself. But second effect is to discard 1 and sack him to salvage a character. This means he's a level 0 that can grab any character out of our waiting room. So it's nice to just sort of always have him in hand off of our Elizabeth combo. Or he can be a sort of bridge to where we can play the Meliodas. Discard, reveal top. If it's 0, which it probably is, grab Hauser, play Hauser, turn him into the level 3 we needed. Just a very good bridge to make sure we can always grab the specific cards we want. Our only level 1 is 4 copies of Meliodas, Wielder of Lost Vein. This is a 104500. If you have another Meliodas, Wielder of Lost Vein in your center stage, this card gets 2 abilities. First one is plus 500 power for each of your other Britannia characters, making it 65 on a full board. And the second effect is on attack. Look at up to 2 cards from the top of your deck, choose 1 from among them, put it on top, put the rest into your waiting room. This is good for A, making sure you don't trigger climaxes when you don't want to. B, making sure you do trigger gate climaxes when you want to add another StockSoul back to your hand. Or C, just picking the best cards you want to trigger, the ones that are least important to you, or the ones that are soul triggers when you need soul triggers. This can actually, ironically, be like really good on your finisher turn if you have just lanes that you need costless characters in, since it can control how much damage it's dealing fairly easily. Obviously, you can only pick between what the top 2 cards are, but you do at least get to pick. So just really good as a beater. And it's 6,500, which is reasonable for a costless character. Our climax isn't a 1k one, so it's stuck at 6,500, barring any of our unattacked pumps, but still reasonable. Second effect is on play. You can discard one card, search your deck for a Meliodas Wielder of Lost Vein, put it on any position of your stage, and shuffle. So, really good way to just get multiple beaters out. You can hit level 1, play one copy, discard whatever you don't need, go get a second copy, and that kind of just fills your board. Makes it really easy to get sort of just a recursive, like, clean stock generating board that helps you compress into the late game. It's kind of just our best beater at level 1. Our only level 2 is one copy of Nanashi, Mysterious Swordsman. So this card is here for all of the decks that want to be playing lots of early plays, playing lots of walls, decently good against like standby decks. On play from hand, put the top 3 cards of your deck into your waiting room. If there's a climax among them, you can choose a level 3 or lower character in your opponent's center stage and put it into their waiting room. So that can pop any kind of early play, any kind of standby target. And he's also an anti-change stock bomb. So when he's reversed, if the battle opponent was higher than your opponent's level, you can send it to their stock and then put the bottom card of their stock into waiting room. This means that for a 2-1, we can remove 2 of our opponent's lanes if they're trying to like win on board. Which is just really efficient. Since we're not really playing for board ourselves, it just gives us a good way to contest those decks in a meaningful way and make them spend extra resources. It's also obviously like good against minus soul decks if they're playing like minus soul early plays or whatever, because we can try to pop them with the first effect. Second effect, not going to help as much because they probably still get their effect off there, but we can just try to pop them for that reason. Open up direct lanes helps us push soul damage and can stop counters as well. Our first level 3 is our own early play. This is Diane Cheerful, 329k. It's an early play on a full board if we have 4 or more characters. During your turn, if all your characters are Britannia, this gets 2k, so it's going to be an 11k full board early play. Really good. And on play from hand, we can discard one to put the top card of our clock into stock. Ideally, hand is the resource that you should be pretty much full on throughout most of the game, if not close to it. So turning one hand into one extra stock is perfectly fine. It also means that you can afford to like brainstorm an extra time to potentially go over hand size to use this effect to heal, and just keep the best cards, discard the worst ones. Overall, pretty good. We're playing 4, not because we want to jam early play heals a ton, but because it is basically color fixing for all of our green. Since we're not playing the Gil Thunder level 0 in this deck. If you were playing it, you could actually cut this down to 3 probably, and play 4 Gil Thunder instead of the 3 clean cuts. But we do need lots of green, we need enough green to be leveling it consistently. And this is the perfect card to be able to level and still have a couple copies left to play. It's good for just stalling out level 2 a little longer if we can't get our opponent to a range where we think we can kill them effectively. Or if we just want to stay at low level 2 while we try to push them soul, since most of the decks that are like super explosive still can't kill from like 2-2 or 2-1, sometimes even 2-3. So being able to heal down as we push them is still really good, and obviously the higher in damage they are, as long as we don't die, makes them easier to kill on the crackback. We play 2 copies of our stock swap, Diane, Wielder of Gideon. 3-2-10k on play from hand, pay 1, stock swap their opponent. They put all their stock into waiting room, and then the same number from top of deck into stock. And then when your other character attacks, this gets 1,000 power until the end of turn. This is just here for the stock swap effect. It is decompression. We'll read our finisher next and see why decompression is so important, but trust me, even outside of decks that, you know, are trying to generate a lot of clean stock and compress that way like Slime, we're going to want this alongside our finisher. So Hendrickson, no longer human, is our main finisher here. He's a 3-2-9k, gets plus 1,000 power for each character in your opponent's backstage, which is super weird, but it means he's probably always going to be 11k. On play from hand, look at top 3 of your deck, choose 1 card from among them, put it in hand, put the rest into your waiting room. He digs for his own climax, which is super good, and also cantrips, which is relevant because he has a discard 2 cost on his climax combo. So climax combo is on attack, pay 1, discard 2. If the gate climax is in our climax area, we can look at the top card of our opponent's deck, put it on top or into waiting room, and then deal 4 damage. So if we see a clean damage on top, this means that we're effectively burning 3, but if it sticks, they take 4. And if we see a climax on top, we could just rip it off, and that's great. That just kills people. The real power here shows up when we start looking at the decompression tools we have. Obviously, the stock swap we just saw, and the next card. The Dreyfus level 3 that we play. These both can make our opponent end up in deck states where they just don't have enough climaxes to survive a bunch of burn 4s. And attacking for 3, like sticking a burn 4 and an attack for 3, and then just needing to stick one more instance to sort of end the game from like mid-high level 2, means that Hendrickson is just always a threatening finisher. And it is actually very realistic to just kill people over and over again from like 2-5, 2-4 with this, because of the cool decompression tools we have. And, you know, even if they're not in a deck state where you get the decompression, if they're just sort of like mid-compression already, like on a fresh deck state and they don't have like a lot of stock or anything, just being able to look at their top card to make your burn 4 effectively a burn 3 is still really good. Can still mean you're pretty likely to kill them. So strong finisher overall. I think it gets overlooked a lot just because it says deal 4 damage, and people have bad memories of that being easy to cancel. So 2 copies of Dreyfus is our last level 3. We're playing 2 copies of both the stock swap and this card just because of how important they are to our finisher setup. Any chance that we can benefit from them, we want to. This is a 3/2 10/5. On play, if you have 4 or more other characters, you can put a Britannia character from your waiting room into your stock. This means that we can play all of these cards that are decompressing our opponent without eating too much into our resources that we want for Hendrickson. And auto, we can pay 1 and rest a stand character. On play, your opponent chooses 1 climax in their waiting room, returns all cards from their waiting room except that card to their deck, and shuffles. So this means that if our opponent ever has one of those turns where they like refresh and then pay out all their stock to play their dudes, or maybe heal some and end up with like 10 or 12 cards in waiting room that are just not climaxes, we can super punish them by shuffling all those back into their deck. Even if they're on a fresh deck state with like 10 stock, right? You can play the stock swap, send all of that 10 stock to waiting room, rip 10 cards off the top of their deck that are completely random, but are likely going to have more climaxes than the 10 stock you just paid out. And then use Dreyfus to shuffle the 10 clean cards from their waiting room back into their deck. Normally a stock swap on a just blind deck, if they're not refreshing, is not going to affect their compression on average, but Dreyfus means that it does, since you are shuffling more cards back into it afterwards. You're effectively keeping their deck size the same, but potentially ripping climaxes out. So this card's just super good at, you know, shuffling a lot of clean damage into our opponent's deck so that our 4s have a better chance of sticking. It's our whole game plan is just generate resources, push damage, and then explode on them with 4 damage at the end over and over again when they can't cancel. Our climaxes, obviously we play 4 copies of the StockSoul. It's worth noting this is a level 1 or lower StockSoul, so you don't have to stock a yellow card. You just need yellow to play it. Can stock basically the entirety of our deck because we play so many level 0s. And this combos with the Elizabeth Brainstorm. And then our Gate Climax that combos with our Hendrickson level 3. And doubles up not only as being our finisher climax, but also as being a good way to help us loop the StockSoul over and over again. Taking a look at the deck as a whole in the meta, the pros, you have an easy to loop level 0 climax combo, which is just always strong because you can get easy card advantage, easy damage push. We can aggressively push Soul because we have so many costless characters and climaxes to play over and over again, and we're low resource. And we have a super strong finisher that has a ton of reach. Attacking for 3, burning 4 over and over again is fantastic. And we have the decompression tools to make it actually threatening. Cons of the deck, we're playing level 0s most of the game, so we're low power and we'll often be giving up lanes throughout the game. Our only sort of exceptions to this are when we play Nanashi or the early play healer and can win lanes that way, or if our level 1 just happens to be big enough, which probably still won't be often. And our other main con is that we have no defensive options, so a lot of times we are just racing our opponent to the end of the game, outside of playing our early play healer. In matchups like Chainsaw Man, where you both just have ridiculous finishers that are going to kill the other player from level 2, it really is, you're just trying to kill them before they get a chance to do their thing to kill you. And that can be a con. It leaves a little bit of a lack of agency over some of those matchups. But the raw power of this deck, and just being able to brute force through those games, is where it really shines. Take a look at the whole list here once again. You can see the deck log page for this at the code in the bottom right. That is FUZK, which vaguely resembles an expression your opponent might yell when your Hendrickson sticks a 4. Thanks for watching. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what other decks you'd like to see me cover below. We'll have hopefully some more relevant decks that have been topping, or that I hope to see top, coming up soon, as well as some Shadowverse content. In the meantime, there should be some videos on your screen that you can click to watch while you're waiting. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.